Welcome to Ancient Forbidden Knowledge. I'm your host, Ben Carter, and in today's episode, we travel deep into the heart of the Sahara Desert to examine one of the strangest natural formations ever captured from space. A colossal spiral formation spanning over 25 miles in diameter, perfectly circular and eerily symmetrical. It is called the Eye of the Sahara, or the Richat structure. But some believe it is something far more than geology. Could this be the true, long-lost location of Atlantis? If so, why has the world been taught to ignore it? The Eye of the Sahara, also known as the Richat structure, lies in the western reaches of the Sahara Desert, near Ouadan in Mauritania. From the ground, it is little more than a circular rise of hills and ridges, weathered by wind and time. But seen from the sky, it reveals its true shape, an enormous spiral of concentric rings, stretching wider than the entire city of London. For decades it was largely unnoticed, its magnitude concealed by its sheer size and remoteness. Only in the 1960s, with the advent of manned space missions, did astronauts begin to remark on this curious landform. It became a visual anchor for orbital missions, a strange, unmistakable eye gazing up from the desert below. Geologists have long classified the Richat structure as a deeply eroded dome of rock layers exposed over millions of years. They attribute its form to natural uplift, followed by erosion, forming the rings of differing elevation. According to this explanation, there is nothing artificial here. No walls, no ruins, no signs of civilization, just a geological curiosity. But that explanation has not satisfied everyone. Because long before it had a name on any modern map, this formation sat at the heart of a mystery that had haunted scholars, explorers, and mystics for over 2,000 years. In the 4th century before Christ, the philosopher Plato wrote 2 dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, in which he described a lost island civilization of great power and technological achievement. He called it Atlantis. According to Plato, Atlantis had been located beyond the Pillars of Heracles, known today as the Strait of Gibraltar, and had ruled parts of Europe and Africa before a cataclysm sank it into the sea in a single day and night. He described its capital as a series of concentric circles, alternating rings of land and water, perfectly arranged and engineered by the gods themselves. For centuries, Plato's story was treated as allegory, a moral tale of pride, hubris, and divine punishment, but others took it more literally. Explorers scoured the ocean floor, writers speculated about sunken continents, mystics spoke of ancient technologies buried beneath the waves. Still, no one found it, and the further time moved from Plato's writing, the more Atlantis became myth, not history. But then came the satellite images. Photos of the Sahara from space revealed something strange, a land formation matching, in scale and layout, the very description Plato had given. Not in the ocean, but in the desert. A series of concentric rings, wide enough to contain an ancient metropolis and even accounting for erosion and tectonic shifts, aligned with astonishing precision to the dimensions described in antiquity. And so the question emerged. Could the Eye of the Sahara be the ruins of Atlantis, not lost beneath the sea, but buried beneath time and sand? And if so, what catastrophe turned a lush civilization into desert stone? The first to seriously propose that the Eye of the Sahara might be Atlantis was a small group of independent researchers in the late 20th century. Unburdened by the constraints of academic reputation, they dared to suggest that what had long been dismissed as geology was, in fact, the remains of a forgotten world. Their work gained traction in alternative history circles as aerial images of the Richat structure began to circulate online. From above, it was difficult to deny the resemblance. The outermost ring, wide and gently sloping, matched Plato's description of the great circular canal that surrounded the city. The inner rings were nearly equidistant. The central island, once said to be home to the royal palace and temple, was still visible, raised and perfectly centered. But visual similarity was only the beginning. Measurements taken by satellite revealed that the diameter of the eye was roughly 23½ kilometers, astonishingly close to the measurement Plato recorded for the Atlantean capital. More than just rough approximation, the layout seemed to follow the same proportions. Even the elevation changes between rings roughly mirrored Plato's layered design of alternating water and land. The match was too exact to ignore. Skeptics were quick to dismiss these claims. They pointed out the absence of ruins, artifacts, or architectural remains. But proponents of the theory argued that over thousands of years, all such structures could have been erased by erosion, sandstorms, and tectonic activity. They pointed to the fragile nature of ancient materials and the overwhelming forces of geological time. And they asked a deeper question. If Plato's account was based on an oral tradition older than himself, then how much of the truth had already been lost by the time it was written down? More intriguing still was the presence of ancient water routes. Satellite mapping revealed that the region surrounding the Richat structure was once covered in lakes, rivers, and lush vegetation. Evidence suggests the Sahara was not always a desert. Around 11,000 years ago, during what scientists now call the African humid period, the region was verdant. Rainfall was frequent. Herds of animals roamed freely. There were forests, grasslands, and deep freshwater basins. This timeline is critical. According to Plato, Atlantis fell around 9,000 years before the time of Solon, the Greek lawmaker who reportedly brought the story from Egypt. That places the catastrophe around 11,600 years ago, precisely when the African humid period began to decline. What caused the shift? Theories range from axial tilt and solar activity to comet impact and abrupt oceanic change. But something massive occurred, something that rapidly transformed the region and could have erased an entire civilization. And so the Eye of the Sahara, once dismissed as a geological oddity, began to look more and more like the skeletal remains of a forgotten empire. One buried not beneath water, but beneath sand, silence, and official history. The argument that the Eye of the Sahara could be the remains of Atlantis does not rely on shape and location alone. There are strange details, remnants, anomalies, and inconsistencies that challenge the official story. Some of the oldest maps of Africa, drawn before modern satellite imagery existed, feature vague but persistent references to circular structures in the Western Sahara. Ancient travelers, Arab historians, and even early European cartographers sometimes placed cities in the region where no known settlements exist today. Were these echoes of a memory far older than the written record? Artifacts have also surfaced. In the area surrounding the Richat structure, stone tools and prehistoric implements have been found, dating back tens of thousands of years. These include arrowheads, blades, and what appear to be fragments of pottery. Mainstream archaeologists attribute them to early nomadic peoples, but some researchers point out that these artifacts are scattered unusually deep within the desert layers, suggesting an age and context that contradict accepted habitation timelines. Then there is the question of marine fossils. Scattered throughout the Sahara, including within the Richat area, are remains of ancient sea life, fish, mollusks, and coral. These finds are often explained by the prehistoric presence of inland seas and marine incursions. But the sheer number and depth of these fossils hint at something more dynamic. If the area was once flooded rapidly and catastrophically, could this be linked to the cataclysm Plato described? Could the rise of the desert have followed an oceanic deluge? Geologists have noted unusual magnetic anomalies in and around the Richat structure. In certain areas, compasses behave erratically, and the Earth's magnetic readings fluctuate. While science offers natural explanations, such as iron-rich rock or ancient meteor impact zones, others interpret this as evidence of long-lost technology or residual energy from something no longer understood. Ancient myths often spoke of cities that harnessed power drawn from the Earth itself. Was Atlantis such a place? Another point of interest is the lack of settlement in the region. Despite being a prominent feature, visible even from orbit, the Richat area has remained sparsely inhabited throughout recorded history. It is neither a strategic point nor a hospitable one, but perhaps it once was. Perhaps something happened that made the area cursed, avoided, or deliberately forgotten. Satellite images also show what appear to be unnatural shapes on the fringes of the formation. Linear ridges, rectangular outlines, and collapsed dome-like features. Though often dismissed as wind erosion or illusions caused by shadow, these forms persist under multiple angles and lighting conditions. Independent researchers using elevation data have identified symmetrical patterns inconsistent with natural geological flow. Could these be foundations? Collapsed walls? Echoes of temples or structures long buried? If a civilization did once thrive at the eye of the Sahara, its remains may be too faint for traditional archaeology to see. But piece by piece, the clues left behind suggest that something extraordinary happened here. Something that does not fit comfortably within the boundaries of modern history. Patterns begin to emerge when the eye of the Sahara is viewed not as an isolated anomaly, but as part of a much broader ancient landscape. Across the world, cultures that were never in contact with one another told stories of a lost civilization that vanished in a flood or cataclysm. From the Hopi of North America to the Dogon of Mali, from the Sumerians of Mesopotamia to the Greeks of the Mediterranean, myths describe an age of wisdom, architecture, and cosmic knowledge, followed by destruction. In many of these stories, the civilization was said to be circular, radiant, and central to human origins. The Dogon people of West Africa, who have lived not far from the Richat structure for centuries, possess an oral tradition so unusual that it has puzzled anthropologists for decades. They speak of sky beings, advanced astronomical knowledge, and a star system invisible to the naked eye, long before modern telescopes confirmed its existence. Their lore describes a homeland that existed before the sands, a place of concentric design and great spiritual energy. While mainstream scholars attribute this to myth or coincidence, others believe the Dogon may be one of the last living threads connecting to a pre-cataclysmic civilization. Consider the similarities in city design found throughout the ancient world. In Teotihuacan, in Mexico, the city layout mimics celestial alignment and circular geometry. In Cambodia, the lost city of Angkor is patterned after star systems. In Mesopotamia, the ziggurats followed astronomical grids. These civilizations, separated by oceans and millennia, all shared a fascination with geometric precision, cosmic order, and circular forms. The eye of the Sahara, with its perfect concentric rings, fits that same forgotten blueprint. Even older than the pyramids of Egypt are the megalithic sites in Turkey, such as Göbekli Tepe. There, massive stone pillars arranged in circles defy explanation. Carbon dating places its construction over 11,000 years ago, precisely within the time frame that Plato attributes to the fall of Atlantis. Its sudden burial and rediscovery in the 20th century challenged the idea that complex civilizations emerged slowly from primitive origins. What if many such civilizations existed and were destroyed? The architectural and symbolic similarities suggest that knowledge was once shared across great distances. Was there a mother culture, an ancient source from which these ideas flowed? And if so, could that culture have been based at the eye of the Sahara, or perhaps been one of several hubs in a global network? Further linking these ideas is the recurring theme of the trident, a symbol long associated with Atlantis. It appears not only in Greek iconography, but also in ancient art from India, the Middle East, and the Americas. Could this be more than coincidence? Could it be a symbol passed down from a common origin, distorted through time, religion, and migration? Myths from Egypt speak of Zep Tepi, the first time, a golden age when gods walked with man and built the original temples. According to these accounts, Zep Tepi ended with a flood and the loss of great knowledge. If such a time ever existed, its remains would be buried beneath both time and denial. The eye of the Sahara may be more than a landform. It may be the fossilized fingerprint of a civilization erased, remembered only in fragments, in symbols, in myths, and in the silent rings of stone that spiral outward through the sands. The refusal of mainstream academia to engage seriously with the eye of the Sahara as a potential site of Atlantis reveals something deeper than simple skepticism. It reveals a firewall, a protective boundary built around the narrative of human history. Archaeology, geology, and anthropology have all evolved within strict frameworks. These frameworks are shaped not only by scientific method, but by funding, institutional control, and the fear of reputational collapse. To suggest that an advanced civilization existed in what is now the desert of Mauritania over 11,000 years ago is not merely controversial, it is professionally dangerous. Universities and research institutions depend on grants, peer-reviewed journals, and internal consensus. Any researcher who dares to question the established timeline risks ridicule, lost funding, or career isolation. This is not a theory. It has happened. Scholars who have proposed unorthodox ideas, whether about ancient high technology, out-of-place artifacts, or pre-Ice Age civilizations, have often been forced into silence or obscurity. Their work is branded pseudoscience. Their reputations are quietly dismantled. The process is subtle but effective. When evidence contradicts accepted models, it is reclassified or ignored. Anomalies are dismissed as misinterpretations. Findings that cannot be explained are quietly shelved. And when alternative theories gain traction with the public, they are attacked not on their merits, but on the character of those who promote them. This is how control of the historical narrative is maintained, not through debate, but through denial. Take, for example, the curious absence of systematic archaeological surveys within the Richat structure itself. Despite its visibility from space, and despite growing public interest, there has been little effort to excavate or deeply study the site. No major academic institution has launched a serious investigation. The few studies that exist focus only on its geological features. Why has no one scanned the entire structure with ground-penetrating radar? Why no deep digs in the central island? Why the silence? When questioned, experts point to the inhospitable climate, lack of infrastructure, or low likelihood of human settlement. But these excuses fall apart under scrutiny. Far more remote and difficult sites have been excavated, from the high plateaus of Peru to the frozen soils of Siberia. When a site holds the potential to reshape our understanding of the ancient world, effort should not be a barrier. Yet here, in the eye of the Sahara, a vast and symmetrical formation matching one of the most enduring mysteries in history, academia shows no curiosity. There is also the matter of cultural preservation. Governments, particularly in developing regions, often rely on international partnerships to fund heritage projects. If a site like the Richat structure challenges the global narrative, support may evaporate. National policies may discourage exploration. In some cases, authorities may even restrict access, not from conspiracy, but from caution or pressure or simple indifference. And so, the firewall holds. Not because the evidence is absent, but because the implications are too vast. If the eye of the Sahara is Atlantis, then human history must be rewritten, and that is something institutions built on certainty cannot easily allow. Outside the walls of academia, alternative theorists, independent researchers, and ancient history enthusiasts have continued to ask the questions that institutions will not. While their approaches may vary, many of their theories center on a single premise: that what we are taught about human history is only a fragment of the truth, and that the eye of the Sahara is one of the last surviving blueprints of a civilization that possessed knowledge far beyond our understanding. One of the most compelling fringe theories is that Atlantis was not only advanced in terms of architecture and engineering, but that it operated on principles of energy and resonance lost to time. The circular structure of the eye, concentric rings separated by equal distances, mirrors the kinds of harmonic geometry found in sound vibration experiments. Theorists propose that this layout may have been designed to harness natural frequencies from the Earth itself. Much like standing waves in a cymatic pattern, the rings could have channeled energy into the central island, a concept that appears repeatedly in sacred architecture from ancient sites around the world. Linked to this idea is the belief that ancient civilizations possessed technologies based on frequency, magnetism, and planetary alignment. Proponents suggest that the Richat structure's magnetic anomalies may not be random, but residual effects of long-dead technology. They point to similar anomalies found at sites like Giza, Stonehenge, and Teotihuacan, places where geometry, astronomy, and energy appear to converge. Another theory holds that Atlantis was not a single city, but a network of cities, a global civilization with outposts spread across continents. From this perspective, the Eye of the Sahara would have been one of several Atlantean hubs, each designed to resonate with the planet's natural grid. Some even suggest that these cities were positioned according to ley lines, invisible energy pathways crisscrossing the globe, referenced in ancient myth and sacred geography. There are also claims of advanced metallurgy in ancient times, the use of orichalcum, a mysterious reddish-gold metal said to be mined only in Atlantis. Though no confirmed source of orichalcum exists today, underwater explorations off the coast of Sicily have uncovered ingots with unusual metallic compositions. While skeptics dismiss these as unrelated, those seeking Atlantis see them as clues to a forgotten science. Interdimensional theories push the boundaries even further. Some researchers speculate that Atlantis may not have vanished in the conventional sense, but phased out, the result of a shift in vibrational frequency or consciousness. According to this view, the Eye of the Sahara is a residual imprint, a scar left behind when reality itself was torn. Though such ideas seem extreme, they mirror descriptions in ancient texts that speak of gods departing, realms collapsing, and veils falling between worlds. While these theories remain outside the boundaries of mainstream acceptance, they continue to grow in popularity, not because they provide easy answers, but because they resonate with a deeper intuition. A sense that something profound was lost, that the past was not primitive, but powerful, and that the true story of human civilization has yet to be told. To understand why a truth like this might be hidden, we must ask a difficult question. Who benefits from the lie? If the Eye of the Sahara truly is Atlantis, or even the remains of an advanced prehistoric civilization, then its discovery would upend nearly every pillar of modern understanding. Religion, science, education, and geopolitics would all be forced to rewrite their foundational narratives. Such a revelation would not simply change history books, it would shift the power structure of the world. Control over history is control over identity. Empires throughout time have rewritten the past to legitimize their rule. Dynasties have burned records, altered timelines, and erased the memory of those who came before. If there was a civilization before all recorded civilizations, one that mastered energy, architecture, or consciousness in ways we still cannot replicate, then modern powers are not the pinnacle of human achievement. They are inheritors of a broken lineage, built atop forgotten greatness. That realization would weaken the myth of progress and expose the illusion that we are the first to reach this level of advancement. Religious institutions would be equally threatened. Many of the world's major faiths rely on linear historical narratives. The idea of a singular creation, followed by known prophets, miracles, and revelations, cannot coexist easily with a civilization older, more powerful, and possibly more spiritually advanced than any described in Scripture. If Atlantis or its memory predated all sacred texts, then those texts would lose their monopoly on truth, and institutions that have guarded and interpreted those texts for centuries would lose their authority. The political world is no different. Knowledge is power, and forbidden knowledge is the most powerful of all. If a lost civilization once mapped the stars, built harmonically tuned cities, or accessed forms of technology that defied gravity or time, that knowledge would be more valuable than any weapon. It would attract secret societies, intelligence agencies, and elite interests long before the public ever heard its name. And if pieces of that knowledge still exist, buried in vaults, archives, or private collections, they would be hidden with absolute secrecy. There are also economic incentives. Modern industries profit from scarcity, of energy, of information, of spiritual direction. A civilization that harnessed free energy, healed with vibration, or unlocked the power of the human mind would make many industries obsolete. Energy conglomerates, pharmaceutical giants, and technology monopolies would have everything to lose. Their profits depend on humanity believing that we are just now reaching the peak of our potential, not rediscovering what was once common. Even education plays a role. Generations have been taught the same limited version of history. If that version is false, then every degree, every textbook, and every academic title built upon it becomes suspect. The institutions we trust for knowledge would be revealed as guardians of a partial truth, or worse, willing participants in its suppression. And so, erasure becomes not just convenient, but essential. Not by one group or agenda, but by a system that cannot afford to admit it was wrong. The Eye of the Sahara is ignored not because it is irrelevant, but because its revelation would unravel the story that holds our world together. If the Eye of the Sahara truly marks the place where Atlantis once stood, then the implications are staggering. It would mean that human history is not a steady climb from primitivism to progress, but a cycle of rise, collapse, and forgetting. It would mean that humanity has already reached heights of wisdom and technology that we now view as science fiction, only to lose it all. And it would raise a chilling possibility that we are not the pinnacle of civilization, but a fractured echo of something far older. This changes everything. Our understanding of time collapses. The idea that writing began in Mesopotamia, or that the oldest cities were built just 6,000 years ago, becomes untenable. If a society capable of building massive, harmonically aligned circular cities existed 11,000 years ago, then we are living in the shadow of an epoch that predates all known empires. And if that society was destroyed in a single cataclysmic event, whether by flood, impact, or energy shift, then our planet is not stable. It is volatile, and history is not guaranteed to continue forward. It would also mean that our ancestors were not simple, superstitious people. They were survivors, people who inherited fragments of a lost world and tried to preserve what they could. The myths, the monuments, and the rituals handed down through time may not be primitive storytelling. They may be encoded memories, instructions, warnings. What if the obsession with pyramids, ziggurats, circles, and stars comes from something deeper than culture? What if these shapes were part of an ancient science, a way to connect with the earth, the cosmos, or the inner mind? If Atlantis, or whatever name it once bore, understood the electromagnetic field of the planet, the harmonic structure of matter, or the resonant properties of sound and stone, then its fall was not just a tragedy, it was the loss of a blueprint for human evolution. And what if that loss was not accidental? What if the fall of Atlantis marked the beginning of a long descent into amnesia, a deliberate suppression of humanity's true origin, locked away through fear, conquest, or greed? What would our world look like if that knowledge had survived? Would we have cured disease? Would we have colonized the stars? Or would we have simply lived in harmony with the planet, understanding its rhythms rather than exploiting its resources? If the Eye of the Sahara holds the key to this lost world, then its silence is deafening. It is not speaking in words or ruins, but in shape, scale, and impossibility. It sits alone in the desert, exposed yet ignored, daring us to see it for what it might be. Not a metaphor, not a myth, but a scar from a time when the world was different, and the truth was still known. The Eye of the Sahara remains, unmoved, unexcavated, and largely unexplored. It does not shout its secrets. It whispers them, through the curvature of stone, through satellite images rarely studied, through myths it exists in a strange limbo. Too large to ignore, yet too inconvenient to embrace. For those willing to see, it may be the most important archaeological site on Earth. For those unwilling, it is simply a weathered rock formation, dismissed without question. But questions persist. Why does the structure match Plato's description in size, shape, and proportion? Why does it sit beyond the Pillars of Heracles, precisely where Atlantis was said to lie? Why does the local geology show signs of a once lush, water-rich environment? And why has no serious archaeological expedition been conducted to search for foundations, artifacts, or buried architecture beneath its concentric rings? These are not rhetorical questions. They are doors, waiting to be opened by those with the courage to challenge the official narrative. Because if the Eye is what some believe it is, then history does not just need correction, it needs resurrection. And what of the stories? The global myths of a golden age, of divine architects, of a cataclysm that came not just with water but with silence. Were they the final message of a world that knew it was dying? Were they a warning meant to outlive the ruins themselves? Every satellite that passes over the Sahara, every grain of sand blown across the Richat's great stone rings, moves above a mystery that has endured for over 11,000 years. A mystery that may hold the key to understanding who we are, where we came from, and what we once lost. We are told that history is linear, that civilization began 5,000 years ago, that everything before that was darkness. But what if the light was already there, and it was simply extinguished? The Eye of the Sahara does not ask for belief. It asks for attention. It asks us to consider the possibility that what we call myth may be memory, that what we call natural may be intentional, and that what we have forgotten may one day return. Thanks for listening. This has been Ancient Forbidden Knowledge. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you'd like to support the show, gain access to bonus content, and unlock our entire library of podcasts, subscribe to the Forbidden Knowledge Network on Patreon. Subscribe now.